Here's the thing. We've all heard of pornography. Pornography, as defined by Merriam-Webster's dictionary, is a depiction of erotic behavior, as in pictures or writing, that is intended to cause sexual excitement. The second definition is material such as books or photograph that depicts erotic behavior and is intended to cause sexual excitement. The third definition is the depiction of acts in a sensational manner so as to arouse a quick, intense emotional reaction. My question is there a problem? That brings me to the topic of this presentation, the sexual exploitation of children through pornography in the context of human trafficking. Fair warning, bias exists today, specifically when it comes to topics such as human trafficking, sexual exploitation of children, child porn. These topics are very emotional and will bring about a response in everyone. That's why it was really important to me while looking at organizations and researchers and literature to ensure that I was finding credible resources that cited their sources, that looked at the facts, to make sure that this information I was gathering was as unbiased as one could be. This brought about an interesting point. Should one remain unbiased when it comes to a topic such as child pornography? The way that I viewed it is that pornography is on one side of a continuum and sex trafficking is on the other side. I was wondering if there was one point when pornography becomes sex trafficking and vice versa. It's important to remember that slavery still exists today, and in the context of this project, we're looking at sex trafficking of minors. To start, I wanted to look at the definitions. The big three are human trafficking, sex trafficking, and child pornography. Human trafficking is defined as the recruitment, harboring, transportation, provision, or obtaining of a person for labor or services through the use of force, fraud, or coercion for the purpose of subjection to involuntary servitude, peonage, debt bondage, or slavery. Sex trafficking is defined as the recruitment, harboring, transportation, provision, obtaining, patronizing, or solicitation of a person for the purpose of a commercial sex act. Child pornography, as defined by federal law, is any visual depiction of sexually explicit contact involving a minor, which is a person who is less than 18 years old. Other definitions that are specifically important to child pornography is OCSE, bear with me on the many letters. So first, that is online child sexual exploitation. There's also CSAM, also CSEM, online grooming, live streaming, and pimps. So online child sexual exploitation is defined as all acts of a sexually exploitive nature that is carried out against a child that have, at some stage, a connection to the online environment. This means anything that results in or causes images or other material documented through sexual exploitation to be produced, bought, sold, possessed, distributed, or transmitted. Child sexual abuse material, also child sexual exploitation material, are materials depicting acts of sexual abuse and or focusing on the genitalia of a child. Specifically, CSEM is all other sexual material of children. Online grooming is very similar to grooming in the topic of sex trafficking. Basically, it's grooming that occurs online. So this is the process of establishing or building a relationship with a child either in person or through the use of the internet or other digital technologies to facilitate either online or offline sexual contact with that person. As long as there is something in that grooming process that occurs online, it is considered online grooming. Next, there's live streaming. This is when an individual is coerced to participate in sexual activity, which is then transmitted to others through the use of technology to be streamed live remotely. So this means that individuals all over the world can watch an individual engaging in some sexual activity as it is happening remotely. Next, pimp. Pimp is often related to prostitution. I thought it was important to include in this presentation, however. So a pimp is defined as the person exploiting a prostitute or a sex trafficked person. They are considered themselves to be an owner of the person, and they generally live off the profits generated by the person who is prostituted or sex trafficked. So I was looking at if there was such thing as good porn. I found an important distinction. There is pornography, where individuals willingly claim pornography as their profession. That is what they do to make money, and they do it willingly. Then there are individuals who don't do it willingly, who are trafficked into that position. These are women, men, and children. So, if we are to look at pornography through the angle of individuals who willingly put themselves in that position, can porn be good? The answer I found was no, as pornography creates a demand for women and children to be supplied for sexual use. Then the pornography is disseminated for the profit, where it's going to circulate the web forever. And thus, the consumption of pornography is buying sex, making the woman and the child an object. I also found that it was super important to look up the definition of prostitution when looking up pornography. As mentioned before, there are some children and women who are trafficked into the role, and many women and children are doing this act, obviously against their will. Often, individuals who are trafficked into this role rarely see any money come out of the porn that they create. It often goes to their pimps or traffickers. So, is pornography fueling the sex trafficking industry? The answer I found was yes, it is perpetuating the sex trafficking industry. It creates a demand, and thus there needs to be a supply. Two important quotes that I found from two articles were from Farley and McKinnon. The first states that pornography is men's rehearsal for prostitution. Pornography is cultural propaganda which drives home the notion that women are prostitutes. Second, to address child sexual exploitation while doing nothing effective for adult women is to suppose that an age line is enforceable on or respected by an industry that is organized to exploit the powerlessness and to accept the false notion that women become equal at the age of 18. This is drawing the line of if you are going to fight so hard for child sexual exploitation and then not fight against pornography, maybe your values are slightly skewed. I chose to put numbers close to the end of this presentation because of the nature of sex trafficking and child porn. Both of these things are underground, so numbers are not readily known. I went with what I could best find as trustworthy. So, firstly, the porn industry is worth $13 billion. $3 billion of this $13 billion is profits made from child porn. In a study that interviewed 900 prostitutes from 9 different countries, 49% of them said that while prostituting, their pimps required them to create porn. The Children's Rescue Coalition found 132,672 unique web pages containing child sexual abuse material in 2019. This was an increase of 1,000% since 2013. The Children's Rescue Coalition also found that the most shared child abuse file has been linked to over 2.5 million IP addresses. I think it's important to explain this as it can be confusing. This means that there is one child out there who has one video of them being sexually abused, and this one file has been created on 2.5 million different websites. And so this does not mean that it's been viewed 2.5 million times. This means that there are 2.5 million different websites of this child being abused that can be viewed by tens, hundreds, thousands of people. Finally, the CRC also identified that there are 72.5 million IP addresses worldwide sharing child sexual abuse material. Again, the CRC, which is the Children's Rescue Coalition, is one of many organizations out there who are scanning the web for CSAM. There is going to be varying numbers. The FBI even looks for CSAM, and they have their own number of how many IP addresses are out there sharing CSAM. What about the law? So, as I mentioned, the FBI is involved. So, it is a federal law that child porn is illegal. So, federal law prohibits the production, distribution, importation, reception, and possession of any image of child pornography. Images of child pornography are not protected under the First Amendment, and they are illegal contraband under federal law. Section 2251 makes it illegal to persuade, induce, entice, or coerce a minor to engage in sexually explicit conduct for the purposes of producing visual depictions of that conduct. An interesting case that I highly recommend looking into is the case of Linda Borman. She kind of brought awareness to the idea that the pornography is not everything it seems, that it's not always individuals, not always consenting adults who want to be participating in this pornography. She actually went to court against her husband, claiming that he forced her into her role as a pornographer. He sexually abused her and physically abused her, forcing her to create pornographic films, and it kind of shook the pornography industry. My call to action, the first one is very simple that I think everyone can very easily do right now. It's to sign a petition to take down Pornhub. Pornhub is one of the most readily used porn websites out there. It's very readily accessible, and everybody can upload anything they want to that website, making it very easy for child sex traffickers to upload videos of child sexual abuse onto that website. And so there is a petition with about 2.5 million signatures to get that down. And I highly recommend everybody sign that petition, as it is one of the worst websites that contributes to the child sexual abuse material that is being put out into the public. If you feel more compelled, you can donate. These are just a few websites I found and that I used in creating this presentation. There are many, many other websites that you can donate to. I found the Children's Rescue Coalition to be really amazing. And finally, here are my references. If you find the topic of pornography, prostitution, and trafficking all being related really interesting, I recommend Farley, Luswick, and McKinnon. Thank you so much.